Welcome to the Six Fouls podcast. I'm Squid. To my left is M-Dot. To my right is AB. Tonight's topic is the greatness of LeBron. So as LeBron heads to his sixth NBA final, first off, he's 2-3 in the finals coming in. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, I want to start with the coolness of this story about how he leaves the Heat and he comes back home to Cleveland. This is one of the great sports stories that you'll ever get.
And that's where you lose me right there.
Of course. You're the major hater. But
yeah. Listen, I'm going to say first and foremost, I'm clearly a LeBron hater. But no matter how hard I hate on anybody in any sport, I always try to look at it as somewhat of an unbiased point of view. I do try to look at both sides. The LeBron thing, I hated the fact that him and Wade and Bosh conspired to go to Miami. No one's going to ever tell me different. They played together in the Olympics a couple of years before. They all had opt-outs in their contract. And, Riley had to clear the room to get them, but that was their master plan. And then those guys are kind of hitting their career death, mostly Wade, their career deathbed. They're clearly on the downfall. And now he goes back home, and everyone loves him for it. But newsflash, they have one of the best talented point guards in the world in Kyrie Irving, and they had the number one pick again, which they knew, and everyone knew, could be used to trade for Kevin Love.
Okay.
So
everyone is going to play the role of GM.
He's not
and want to bring players in. You're not going to want to go back to a losing franchise.
But my point is, the whole point of coming back home, he's not going there if they don't have Kevin Love or the ability to get Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. If they still had Mo Williams and Anderson Varejao and Boobie Gibson and Delonte West, he's not even picking up that phone call.
He could have gone anywhere. He could have gone anywhere.
He went to go join.
He could have gone to L.A. He could have gone anywhere.
Why would he go to L.A.?
Time and time again that he's
why
an
would he
boy.
Go to L.A.?
Time and time again. The entire time.
Hey, let me
he's
tell you
given
something.
back to that community.
Let me tell you something. He would have gone to L.A. if they had Kyrie and Kevin Love. I'll tell you that right now.
Kyrie first and foremost is.
It's huge. He's not going back home. It's not a homecoming if those guys aren't there. And I don't care. He can say, and listen, I understand. I'm sure there's plenty of sentiment and emotional connection to the city, and he grew up and all that. I don't doubt it one bit. But my point is, this isn't coming full circle unless they are loaded with talent. He's not going there with what he had the previous time he was there, because that's the reason why he left.
But he could have gone anywhere. He could have collected his talent and gone anywhere.
But who else
he could have picked it. He could have went to New York and said, "By the way, you two are going to join me here."
But who? Right? What two?
He could have gone anywhere, right?
You're talking about.
He could have gone to the Suns, right, and collected their cap space. And
which time frame are you talking about?
I'm talking about when he's leaving the Heat. He could have picked his team,
but he couldn't have gone to New York and told.
But
come here and come here.
But Suns had cap space, right? He could have done that, right?
But the different circumstance with that is teams had to make a trade for Kevin Love. The Cavs had the asset because of the number one pick. He could have gone to New York, yeah, but they wouldn't have had an asset to bring in another guy. He went there to form another big three like the one he had in Miami, only better and younger. He could have gone to Phoenix, but he's playing with Eric Bledsoe and the Morris twins. So no one's going to Phoenix. I hate to break it to you.
And let's be honest, he's not going west.
He's not going to the Lakers, for one, with Kobe's up in age, and there's nothing else on the team outside of Julius Randle. And Ant's right. He's probably not going to a brutal Western Conference because he's had his cake time in the East.
So you're going to completely diminish one of the cool stories?
Yes.
Completely
because it's not happening.
How about LeBron the person? What do we think of him? This is the most he gives back to his community, right? Okay. Michael Jordan, when he was a superstar, you couldn't even get close to him. This is a guy that
he's the modern. Well,
let's not act like LeBron's out there hanging out with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in Cleveland. All right, let's take it easy.
How about the guy who hit the half court shot? He goes out and hugs him.
And he hugged him, yeah.
Is Michael Jordan ever doing that? Let me ask you something. Is he ever doing that?
Is that the same guy he was talking to when he said, "Go back to your miserable lives"?
I knew. It took us what, 5 minutes?
Was that the same?
And why don't we go to the decision too? Why don't we talk about this decision where he embarrassed all of Cleveland?
It was terrible. He went about a couple of things the very wrong way to me.
But those were
and
his
I
handlers.
hated that.
Were those not his handlers telling him
but
what to
he's
do?
still making probably, but
Yeah,
he's
a
still
little bit.
making the decision here. It's still him on camera. It's still him sitting in front of Jim Gray, putting his whole hour special show. The least he could have done with that, Squid, is giving Dan Gilbert a call and like, hey, listen, Dan, I'm just going to let you know that I'm not coming back to Cleveland. Before he went on the air. From Dan Gilbert's point of view, now all the fans would have been upset, but and not that Gilbert is a model citizen because of what he
can
did.
we give a little credit here?
No.
This is a guy who vilified LeBron when he left.
He
then
did.
brought him right
And
back.
he picked up the phone. He picked up the phone and called him and made amends with him.
Which I wouldn't have done. I would not have done. Because to me, that first entrance out of Cleveland, the way he did it was such a sign of disrespect to him and the franchise. Because the common courtesy thing would have been, just shoot me a text message, LeBron. Direct message me on Twitter. Let me know before you go on this show so I don't have to sit there and find out at 9:40 like the rest of the world. Or whatever time it was. I forget. That he could have done the common courtesy thing. And again, not that Dan Gilbert, because him writing the open letter wasn't a good idea. But that was all filled out of emotion and anger because of the fact that LeBron didn't reach out to him and just simply let him know. He did a couple of things that I don't like from a respecting a man standpoint, respecting your peers standpoint. I hated that.
And now could be all for nothing or all moot at this point, because if he wins it, is he back in the good graces of everybody? If he brings this title, that this city has so desperately
They've been
wanted.
waiting. The Browns haven't won.
The Indians.
The Indians haven't won. They're starving for this. So he's gonna get a huge
The hometown
boost.
boy comes back from the dead and brings him back. As much as we hate him, it's
a great story.
It's a great story,
But I had to get that out of the way because I know you felt strongly about that. But here's the thing. Now let's just talk about what everyone is talking about. No, LeBron and Jordan.
Yeah.
And first of all, I know you're a Kobe guy. So before we go to LeBron and Jordan, don't you think it's a slight on Kobe, the fact that they jumped over Kobe and they've gone right to LeBron and Jordan comparison? Why do you think that's the case? This is a guy who's won 5 titles.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it is Kobe's always been this polarizing figure ever since the rape charge in Colorado. People are always going to look at him in a different light. And besides the last couple years, he's never been the most endearing figure, in interviews or the media or publicly. Like, the impression of Kobe is this basketball-obsessed, brutal dictator, kind of in the MJ vein. That's his hero. And that kind of, a lot of people can't relate to that. A lot of people won't admit, but they want the cookie-cutter friendly athlete who's going to be up there and saying the right things and is visible. But Kobe's not. He loves the game. He's obsessed with the game. That's what's made him great. And it kind of turns people the wrong way. And now in his later years, you kind of see, though, the respect is coming a little bit. I think people are starting to understand the greatness, and that happens. I think with a lot of. I think when I've talked to some people, they didn't realize how good Kobe was, or they didn't appreciate his time because they were looking at all the negatives. They weren't appreciating his time as a player.
Okay, so that being said, if you could take off your rose-colored glasses with Kobe for a second and look at this, Kobe, LeBron.
Yeah, it's
Give me your assessment.
It's like apples and oranges, though. It's just, to me, it's all about what you admire or like in players. I mean, we all are fans at some point, right? Like, we all have our heroes. We all have guys we admire for particular reasons. And this also ties in the fact that I come from the vein of a Jordan fan as well. And Kobe, to me, was always the heir apparent. Like, he was the closest that you were ever going to get. Like, you don't get 2 chances to see a Michael Jordan ever again. Like, you're like, God, Jordan's gone. Like, what's this game going to be like? And then a couple years later, there's this guy who actually moves, talks, thinks just like Michael Jordan. You're like, wow. And he actually wins like Michael Jordan. So you're like, of course, I'm going to hop right on the bandwagon and love this guy because he has the same determination.
Easily the most competitive fighter we've seen since Jordan.
Exactly.
It's not even close.
Right. So it's all about, what you value on the scale. It doesn't make LeBron or Kobe any greater or lesser on just like, it just depends on what you're into. I mean, people could underestimate Timmy D, and Timmy D is,
But I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Go ahead.
At 20, they're both 25. You taking LeBron or Kobe?
25, man.
So you're right in the height of the prime. You have to draft one team to build your team around. Are you taking Kobe or are you taking LeBron?
Here's the thing. All right, like everybody knows, because we can only go by numbers, right? The intangibles of the game are never really they're discussed, but only the people who play with these guys can kind of tell you those things and can kind of assess the value of that. But, when you look at numbers and pure numbers, everybody's going to be like LeBron because he's the all-around guy. He's going to drop more assists. And he's always been a passer-first type guy. And that's what I love actually about LeBron's game is his passing more than anything else. But, shit, man, Kobe at 25 was getting close to that 81 Mamba break period where he's about to... I mean, those teams weren't great, but, hey, man, I mean, he was going through the post-Shaq kind of find-yourself moment at that time. Hey, but LeBron was leading garbage teams to the finals, so
you're taking?
It's tough. It's tough, man.
I need something here.
Give
me one.
You might have to. I don't want to do it, man.
He doesn't want to say.
Okay, he doesn't want to say.
I can't do it, even though
that's a vote for LeBron. I think. I'm gonna guess, but I'm gonna switch tables over here now. LeBron, Kobe, and Duncan. I'll throw in there now.
Yeah, which I think you should.
You're taking one of them at 25. Give me 1 to 3.
Give
me 1 to 3.
Here's my biggest question about that: what era of basketball am I taking this guy in?
That's a good point.
If this is 15 years ago, I'm taking Timmy D because of how dominant the big man.
Early 2000s.
I think early 2000s. I'm probably taking Timmy D. I think no matter the era, Kobe's always going to be discussed. But I'm just saying with the style of basketball that it is now, where the big man is kind of almost obsolete to some degree, especially the low post big man. If you're saying in 2000, Timmy D completely dominating the game. He's still very good now, and which is amazing at his age. But I don't know that he's going to completely dominate the game now like he did 15 years ago, 13 years ago, whatever it is. So if you're saying early 2000s, I'm probably going to take Timmy D. If you're saying right now, this style of basketball, I probably have to take LeBron because, obviously, the talents are great on all three of these guys. But in a game where you see a lot of the times you're 5 on the court at times in the game is 6'9", athletic, 240 pounds.
And LeBron's kind of ushered in that style, though, as well. So you have to – his impact and his influence will be seen now in the next wave of guys. You'll see that the Euro game combined with LeBron being as big a figure – or being the ambassador of the game now, you're going to see the impact of LeBron James. And whereas Kobe was still coming from that 90s generation, the gunner mentality of a Jordan influencing Iverson and a Kobe. And that's why those guys were the way they were. There. So that's why the period is a good point, by M.
And I think that now if we take that and take it to LeBron and Jordan, With LeBron, first of all, we've never seen anyone as physically gifted as LeBron.
That's the
this
separation.
is a guy who's 6'8".
That's the separation point.
He can do anything. Yeah. He can guard anybody.
Right.
And he's probably as good a passer as Jordan was. I would say LeBron's the better passer.
Probably. Yeah.
That's the best part of his game, actually, out of all the things.
But I'm not, I wouldn't use that as something to kind of sway a debate. Like, maybe if you're talking a LeBron and Magic, I think that's where the passing ability probably plays more of a factor. But like a LeBron and Jordan probably doesn't get, I don't want to say he doesn't get enough credit because it's ridiculous. He's considered the greatest player of all time. But I think we just think so much of the dominating scorer, the great defensive player. I don't know if he gets enough credit for the other things that he did, like the passing, the rebounding, the leadership, the intensity, and all that stuff.
Willing to find the Steve Kerr for the winner, that type
of stuff.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Unselfish.
Giving up the ball for Paxson to get
as many game-winning shots as he had and as clutch as he was in his career, how many times did he find the guy to win the shot, to win the game, rather?
Definitely.
Hit the game-winning shot.
And that's something I actually, as a Kobe fan, I still fault him because Kobe is still more an not that he's arrogant about, but he's stubborn. Stubborn's a good word. He's a stubborn gunner, whereas Jordan was able to be like, I'll develop the low post game and be more efficient. Whereas Kobe's still trying to gun like he did when he was 25, which I love, but I also hate because at a certain point the evolution of your game, like what Jordan did to his game is priceless, man. Like to see Jordan, the phases where he was just this dunker, driver guy, right? Then he became great at both. And then later in the career, unbelievable post-up guy.
Unbelievable for a 6'6" guy.
Right?
Yes.
So
And it got to a point with him, and part of it was because growing up a diehard Knicks fan, he always beat them, and I hated him, hated his guts. But it got to a point with Jordan where it felt like he never missed a shot. You know what I mean?
the
Like
efficiency,
He'll
that's
tell
what
you
I mean.
he missed more.
Efficient.
yeah,
Game
which
efficiency. That's what I mean.
yeah, like and when it ever came down to a moment, and he was gonna rise up and take the shot, there wasn't a doubt in your mind
It
that he
was
was
not a
gonna
doubt.
hit it.
That's the
There
thing.
wasn't a
Efficiency.
single doubt in your
percentage,
mind.
High percentage.
No doubt.
Knows the spots to get to. And like I said, that's what I regretted in seeing how Kobe's game hasn't changed into that. Because I thought he would kind of take that vein of MJ's game and trying to adapt a little bit and be more efficient, but he's actually still gunning away. But
I just kind of want to read off some, and we know the numbers are great for Jordan.
Right.
Just that we always talk about how great the numbers are for LeBron, the all-around numbers, and they're
Right.
phenomenal. But this is the part where I feel like Jordan sometimes doesn't always get the credit for the all-around numbers. Listen to some of these years: 37 points a game, 5 boards, 4.5 dimes, 3 steals, and a block and a half. Shooting 48%. 35 points a game, 6 dimes, 3 steals, a block and a half. Shooting 53%. For his career, this guy was just under 50% shooting from a guard. And
Unbelievable.
the last 2 years in Washington, he shot 41% and 44%. So chances are he's much closer to 50, and he dipped down a little bit. But 32.5 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 54% shooting. These numbers are
absurd.
ridiculous.
Right.
And a first-team All-Defender, too.
All defender, yes. First team, all everything.
But I think that's also
And the most ultimate competitor that you'll ever see.
Which
right.
I
think-
love that.
I think the shadow.
You have to rip his heart out.
Right. And same thing with Kobe. And I think that the shadow, though, of Jordan, like I said, the gunner mentality, like, has kind of hurt the appreciation of LeBron because LeBron's always been like a pass-first guy. He said he loves passing more than he does scoring. Like, his
Definitely.
game
He has.
is the total opposite of these guys. And so it's harder for some people to kind of, who come from the Jordan Kobe class, to be like, you know what, this guy's better than them. Because they don't see they look at him as like, oh, he's willing to kind of let his other people shine rather than, take the charge, take the bull
Right.
by the horns and show.
And that's a mentality.
right. So it's the era mentality. I think that's what it is.
And the
I
aura,
do
right?
think there's some of it with it. But here's the other thing, and I'm not just bringing this up because of the whole LeBron hating and back to the early part of the discussion. But we talk about you have to rip Jordan's heart out if you want to beat him. Last year, Game 5 against the Spurs, they're down 20, the Heat are, and LeBron's sitting out for the last 6 minutes of the game. You will never see Jordan do that. You will never see Kobe do that. These guys will fight to the last second.
Give me IV,
the
get
torn
me in the
Achilles,
game.
the torn Achilles,
I don't care
Kobe
what it
shooting the
is.
free throw.
They
That's
may
true.
lose. They may, they still may lose by 20, but they're going to shoot and try to get back into that game. They're going to play their asses off for the last 6 minutes because that's your season.
Yes.
And we saw LeBron sitting on the bench with no interest, seemingly, in going back. It's not like he was looking at Spoelstra and saying, hey, Spol, get me in. He was sitting there ready to go home. And that's the other thing that I can't stand. Like, I do think that Jordan and Kobe would have tried their hardest to get back in with all the cramps and stuff like that.
even if they
I know
were-
it's painful.
Right.
I mean, I know
It
it's
is a
painful.
very painful
But
thing.
Kobe,
I don't
know
want
it's
to
very
Kobe's
painful.
the one guy who tasted the pain, like,
Yeah.
year
We're
in,
talking
year out.
about
But-
Jordan in the Jazz game, who's practically
Right.
Yeah, whether he's
With
got
the
the
flu.
flu or food poisoning, whatever the hell happened in Utah. But the guy was sick as a dog, and he came out and dropped 38 points. Like, to me, you don't see that kind of will and desire from LeBron, which is another why I'm going to be realistic. I'm probably never, ever going to say LeBron's a better player than Jordan.
Right.
I don't think so either.
But, that's also a big credit to how great Jordan was.
Yes.
But
Right, that's
part
the
of
thing.
that,
It's a shadow of Jordan.
but
That's
the
all.
stuff that I just mentioned, that's also another reason why I can't in my heart ever really say that. He's not going to give me the same will, intensity, and heart as Jordan
And
did.
that's what
Definitely
I
not.
said,
And there was an aura about Jordan that he was
Right.
not going to lose the series.
Yes.
There's not that much. LeBron, you think, okay, they got a shot here. With
Yeah.
Jordan, there was no shot.
There was no way.
You
There's no way
knew
you
that
were
he was
losing.
winning that series.
And let's be honest. Jordan would never lose to that Mavericks team. Never. He probably would have swept them. There's no way he
He's
would
not
have lost to
losing
that
inferior
Mavericks team.
teams.
Never. He never even went
He
to a
sent
Game
four.
7.
Right.
He
That's
went
what I'm saying.
6 for 6 in the finals, beat them all in 6 games or less. He beat a great Laker team in 5 games.
Yes.
Dismantling some of these teams. Went up 3-0 against a 60-plus win Sonic team.
Yep.
Back-to-back Jazz Finals teams who won 62-plus with 2 Hall of Fame players.
And how many top 50 players never won a championship?
Because of this guy.
I'm saying.
Ewing, Barkley, Reggie
Ewing,
Miller.
Yeah. I mean,
Come on,
Malone.
we're talking about
Malone and Stockton and
big
Garrett.
time guys.
Well, Peyton won at the end, but during
And
the
Drexler
prime,
wouldn't have gotten one if.
Yeah, I think it's absurd that they make these comparisons.
I couldn't agree more.
And then I saw that graphic, like we just kind of tossed around.
Yeah,
The 50 win teams eliminated in their postseason careers. Jordan eliminated 4. The 96 Sonics, the 90s. These are 60 win teams, actually. 60 win teams that eliminated.
Okay.
Jordan eliminated the 96 Sonics, the 97 Jazz, the 93 Suns, and the 98 Jazz. All 60 plus win teams. That's out of control.
Insane.
So
and what was the? Did
LeBron
you have?
beat the 11 Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. That was the
And then the
60 win
Hawks
team.
just now. What about the 50-win team?
The 50
You
win
had
teams,
the 50-win team graphic.
50 win teams eliminated in the postseason career. Kobe has eliminated 24. Jordan has eliminated 20. Timmy D 18.
That's crazy.
Magic 13. Larry 10.
Those are good numbers.
And LeBron,
And
7.
LeBron 7. And
Is that a testament, like you're saying,
to the lack of strength of the Eastern Conference opponents that he's faced? I mean, the finals he's faced some great teams,
Right.
and he's won twice, and he's lost 3 other times. But on the road, he's by the time it's all said and done, he's probably going to pass Bird on that list. He may even pass Magic on that list,
right.
but he's not going to come anywhere near Kobe and MJ for the simple fact that he's not playing against equal talent. Kobe against a brutal Western Conference for his whole career,
Always
where
brutal.
it's always about
Spurs.
6-7 deep of 50-win teams,
And always the
seemingly,
Spurs.
which is insane. yeah, it's always the Spurs.
Timmy
The Jazz
D.
early on,
Right.
those Kings and Blazers teams, how good were they?
Oh, good.
And MJ's Bulls beating the 50 regularly winning 50-game Knicks. The Heat winning 50-plus,
Right.
60 game. The Pacers
Pacers,
always up there.
right.
The Hawks were a good team. A young Hornets team. Pistons with Grant
It's
Hill
arguable,
and
right.
Isaiah early on. Like there was so many good teams that these guys had to go through. And LeBron, more so in the Heat run, right? Because
Well, the Celtics were always
the
kind of a
Celtics were
thorn.
kind of that one team.
Right.
But outside of the Celtics, the Bulls were the other team, but were they really that
Because
great of a
Rose- yeah,
team?
with
Pacers,
Rose's
I mean,
injuries, they
And the
could never be the
Pacers,
threat. Yeah.
it's the Pacers of Paul George,
They were a
David
one
West,
and
and
done
Roy
threat.
Hibbert.
They were a one and done year.
I mean,
Right,
like-
they were good teams, not great teams. But I mean, that being said, he's 2-3 here. How much does he help and hurt his legacy by this NBA final?
This NBA final, if he wins, you gotta give him the
It
props.
boosts him big time, especially if he has
Especially
Kyrie at
with-
60%.
Well, if he has no Kyrie, I mean, if he didn't have Kyrie at all, like the fact that he already kind of did it without Kyrie that last series, no love, I was already giving him super props. With Kyrie, yeah, if Kyrie's back to 80%, and it takes a little bit, but the overall playoff run is impressive. Without a Love, who now, I will say this, everybody wanted to rip Love all year, but they'll see how much they need a Kevin Love in this Warriors series.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
For
everybody's
sure.
like, oh, I had friends texting me like, see, they don't need Love. They just Jones can
And the
play,
notion
Dellavedova
now
can
that
play.
Tristan Thompson's a better
Right.
player than Kevin Love
that's what I agree
is
with.
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Out of control.
They just don't use Love and
Disrespect.
haven't used Love the
Disrespect.
right way all year. But just back to your
Yeah, go ahead.
questions, Quinn. I don't think it hurts him if they lose because I don't expect them to win the series.
Right. So if he gets killed, like he gets taken out in 5.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Me personally, and I kill him all the time. I'm not gonna kill him because to be honest, I expect it. Because to me, this Warriors team is that much better, mostly because of the injuries that Cleveland is facing. No Kevin Love and maybe a 60% Kyrie. If those guys were healthy and they went into this Warriors series and they lost,
There's a different story.
I think it's a completely different story.
So if he personally lays an egg, you're still
Well, he
Well, I
can't
doubt he
lay an
can't.
egg.
Bad
I don't
field
think he
percentage and
will.
stuff like-
With
I don't
this
think
team,
he
he
will
can't
lay an
afford
egg.
to because
Yeah.
they're
I don't
gonna
think
rely
he
on him.
will lay an egg, but if he does lay an egg, then it's kind of a different perspective on how the series went.
Yes.
Maybe I expect them to lose, but if he's coming out with 8 turnover games, shooting 8 for 26, and he's just not looking good, he deserves a knock for that. This is me assuming that he plays at least very good in this series, at least very good, and by his standards, very good is like 25-8-8. So that's me assuming that he plays very good, and they lose the series. I expect him to lose, so I'm not going to kill him. if he wins, I do think he deserves a ton of credit because I think this Warriors team is excellent.
A very good Warriors team.
I think it's they're not getting enough credit for how great they've been all year. I think some people are starting to notice it now because of they just kind of ran through these West Finals. They had one blip, a 2-game blip against the Grizzlies, but then they came back and just destroyed them the next 3 games. So they really haven't had much of an issue getting through a tough Western Conference. So if he beats them, he deserves a ton of credit. I respect him as a player. I don't, there are other things that I don't like. But, it was also like, to some degree, I hated Jordan growing up, but I respected the hell out of him. You hate these guys, but you respect them.
Because they went, right.
Because they're great players. You understand you're watching a great player. I fully understand that. I just hate his guts.
Well, we know that.
Yeah.
So to sum up, you think when all's said and done, he'll be number 2?
Yeah, I kind of do. I think there's an excellent chance that'll be the case. Right now, I feel like Kobe and Duncan deserve the respect to be ahead of him right now because of what they accomplished in their entire career. And LeBron's got to get there. I'm expecting him to get there because I think he's probably going to go back to the finals 3 more years after this year.
More runs in him, yeah.
So he's probably going to win at least 1 or 2 more. Like I said, I'm expecting him to lose this one, but he still may end up with 4 or 5 and 8 or 9 finals appearances,
which
is insane.
Could be 9 in a row consecutive. The fact he's on 5 right now.
Yeah, between the Heat and he can go 4 in a row Heat, another 4 or 5 in a row
and
Cleveland.
That in itself
which is
pretty
insane.
Darn impressive.
And I think he'll probably ends up winning 4 or 5 out of the 8 or 9. Which is insane. It's incredibly impressive.
Kobe range.
Yeah,
Kobe
exactly.
Did 5 in
but I need him to do that first before I start putting him ahead of what Kobe's done and what Tim Duncan has done. Especially Tim. I mean, Tim Duncan just dominated his team a year ago at his age.
Right. And
he almost gets underrated. He's an underrated all-time great.
We could have a whole nother podcast on
unbelievable.
You can have Timmy D can be his own thing.
Quick last point though is I've been hearing a lot too. Is this the hardest opponent do you think LeBron's ever faced in the finals? This Warriors team. Do you think
I feel like it still probably has to be the Spurs, right? Don't you think?
I think it has to be the Spurs.
That's fair.
I think it probably still has to be the Spurs.
But in terms of just like the young, I know OKC was supposed to be the young upstart team, but this is kind of like a more mature OKC
and a better defensive OKC.
Right. So from a youth, because people still wanted to shit on the Spurs even last year because they're like, oh, Timmy's old. Manu's old, Parker's old. This is that young team, hungry.
Well, and just to say,
that's the thing.
As good as San Antonio is and was the last couple of years, you could probably still kind of look at the roster from top to bottom and not be that impressed, right?
It's more because of the greatness of
just the greatness of the system and the style. So maybe from a pure talent base, maybe it is Golden State. Or
out of all the teams, the Dallas.
Certainly not Dallas. I mean, Dallas is dead last.
Right.
Maybe
well,
you have to go back.
Talking about Tony Parker.
Yeah, and
Manu's.
If you go back to the 2007 Spurs, that's Timmy D still in his prime. That's Parker and Manu still at the start of their. That's probably the best.
But like we said, on a talent, because like we said, Pop is such a system guy. He can rotate pieces in and out. We're talking a Warriors team based on pure talent. Probably you could argue some of them aren't even in their prime yet, like a Draymond Green, a Barnes is not even in his prime.
Klay Thompson's not in their prime yet.
Like a Barnes, and an Iggy who's still a very solid veteran guy.
This is a good Warriors team. Man.
It is a very good Warriors team.
This is a really good
well coached too.
Well coached, and they're flexible. Their lineups, their rosters,
definitely
who they're
can
in their
plug
proper
in. Roles. Everyone's
this is such a well put together and a well coached team, like you just said. So this is definitely one of the best teams. Arguably the best that LeBron's faced in the finals.
And that's the wrap for the legacy of LeBron. For M. and AB, I'm Squid, and we'll catch you next time on the 6 Files Podcast.